Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and happy Valentine's Day for all you lovers out there. Hopefully we'll have a great show for you tonight, and welcome to our 52nd edition of Primetime Sports. That's right, we made it a full year, and hopefully there'll be many more. Hey, it's a busy week for sports in the Crescent City, as New Orleans will be hosting the NBA All-Star Game for the third time in less than a decade. That is unprecedented, and I look forward to all the activities this weekend. Hey, this game, by the way, is going to mark the first time in his 5-year career that Anthony Davis will be in the starting lineup. If you remember, AD had more votes than any other front court player in the league 2 years ago. In fact, only Stephen Curry had more, but an injury kept him out of that game. So in his hometown, or at least his adopted hometown, New Orleans, he'll be getting his first start. Hey, by the way, speaking of basketball, the Pels, they outlasted the Phoenix Suns last night, 110-108, to win their second road game in 3 tries over a 4-day stretch. They wrap up this road swing in Memphis tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, against the Grizzlies, before getting a much-needed week off. By the way, they are only 3.5 games out of the playoffs, despite a 22-34 record. Hey, speaking of hoops, Gino Auriemma, congrats to this. This is one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. The UConn women won their 100th game in a row last night. That is remarkable. And by the way, they win their games by an average of 40 points. In fact, that 100 wins, there's only been 2 games that have been decided by single digits. Truly remarkable. And 9 of those were by 60 or more. Are you listening, Tulane? By the way, college baseball, this is one of my favorite times of the year. It starts this weekend. And boy, the local teams are very, very good. Southeastern, who, by the way, their head coach is coming up right here, Matt Reiser, on this show. He is a dynamite young coach, 120 wins in just 3 years. Well, they host the UL Raging Cajuns. We all know what Tony Robichaux's club does. That's going to be Friday night in Hammond, and that's a little bit of a tourney over there in Hammond, so they play different teams every day during the weekend. All the teams play this Friday night, February 17th. Tulane, they host Army, and then they play Air Force the next day, which, by the way, is LSU's first opponent. They play Air Force, and then they play Army. So they're kind of going back and forth with the military services. They'll both be here. And UNO, under head coach Blake Dean, who will be here next week, they play Southern to open the season. But don't forget, next Tuesday, you have 2 dynamite local matchups. LSU will be at UNO, and Tulane will play at Southeastern next Tuesday after the weekend games. Hey, in football news, beleaguered LSU quarterback Brandon Harris is transferring. And the good news for him is he is getting a full release and will not have to sit out a year. I'm very happy for him. He deserves something good to happen to him. He has had a rough career at LSU, but don't forget he's had some decent moments as well. People seem to focus on the negative. Hey, by the way, moving on, move over Atlanta Falcons, because late last night, the West Virginia Mountaineers, you're not going to believe this, they blew a 14-point lead to Kansas. That's not such a big deal, but it is when it's just 2:45 left in the game, and they won in overtime to avoid having 2 consecutive losses in Kansas at home in Bill Self's tenure there. Hey, moving on, as far as the rest of the show goes, we've got a great show for you. It's going to be Morten Anderson. That's right, the Hall of Famer is coming up on this show. And don't forget John Papagrove from Papagrove's Funk and now John Papagrove Band, along with Matt Reiser, the coach I mentioned, Gerald Williams, and, of course, John Brady right next on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned.
Shake it, Frank, keep the man the thing. Way out my nerve and see a ship about to sink. And when he paints a line, you can take it to the bank. You
Welcome back, Crescent City, and how great is it to hear from John Papa Gros, formerly of Papa Gros Funk, but obviously he is with the John Papa Gros Band now, and we're going to talk to him later. But, hey, I can't wait for my next guest to open this show. It's going to be a great, great show. But, hey, listen to this. My next guest got the head coaching job officially when he was 29 years old at Southeastern. And the only thing he's done in the last 3 years is get 120 wins. Think about that. That's 40 wins per year. 2014, his first year, they got a regional for Southeastern. That's a regional NCAA bid in Baton Rouge. Hey, 2015, he followed that up with the most wins in Southeastern baseball history, and that is a rich history. 42 wins. He had 25 conference wins against only 5 losses. That was a record as well. The following year, this to me is as significant as anything. He got an NCAA at-large bid. Smaller conferences don't usually get. You usually have to win that conference to get that bid. That's how established the program is. And I got to tell you, Matt Reiser, the coach of Southeastern, was also a World Series player for the Tulane Greenway back in 2005. And here he is for the first time on Primetime Sports.
Scott, appreciate you having me on.
Welcome to the show. I got to tell you, man, I mean, you've got this thing done rapidly. I've heard some people having success early in their career, like Rick Pitino as a basketball coach, but it's come to you pretty fast, Coach.
It really has. You know, I've been fortunate enough with J.R. Teagues, our current athletic director, played for him at Pearl River in junior college, and he came in and got the thing established, hired me as assistant 10 years ago now, and we started to kind of turn that into a program with the right guys, and it's been a slow process for me. I know you say it happened quick, but you know, I got the reins handed over to me. The only thing we could do different than what Jay had accomplished as a head coach was win a championship, and we've done that twice now.
Well, anytime you can get twice as many wins as losses in whatever sport you're in, you're doing pretty good. So congrats on that. Hey, I got to bring back, because I have a lot of Tulane fans that I'm watching. Yep. I'm going to get into Southeastern, but I have to ask you this. You were part of a World Series team in your first year playing for the Green Wave. Yep. What was that like?
You know, you come to the house back when I was a little kid, and if you were coming over to the house that week during the College World Series, you better be ready to watch the College World Series with me and Daddy. We weren't going to go play in the pool or go out yard and play in the backyard. We were going to watch the College World Series.
Like every game? Because there's a lot of them,
every
man.
one of them.
This isn't like the majors where there's just 7 possibly.
Two games a day, you know, take the break for lunch and then, you know, watch the evening game and cook a little dinner. It was 10 times more than what I ever imagined. Red carpet everywhere. Obviously, the fans, they welcomed us with open arms from that standpoint. It just made it feel like home there in Omaha.
Well, I got to ask you this, because Rick Jones is one of my favorite guys. What was it like playing for this legend? 20 years at Tulane, couple World Series. He's done some great things, and he's back home in North Carolina. But I love the guy. Yeah,
how do you not? That man gave me an opportunity. I tell you what he can do. He can sell. I remember sitting in his office as a recruit and sitting down with him and thinking back in my head as I visited Tulane and kind of looked around a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to come here or not. And I sat down with that man for an hour and a half, and he had me pegged in about 5 minutes, knowing exactly what to challenge me with, to say, hey, you need to be a Tulane Green Wave. I'll never forget the conversation we had. He said, you know, you can get that degree from somewhere else. He knew I was big in academics. He said, you can have a really good job one day. He said, or you can come get your degree from Tulane and you can own that business one day.
Well, they're still selling that, by the way. They're selling. It's not a 4-year deal. It's a 40-year deal. You know the line. Hey, by the way, one last thing on Tulane. You were part of the team that had the post-Katrina right after you won or got to the World Series. Katrina happened, and then you were nomads, just like everybody else that seemed to be playing sports in this town. The Pelicans had to go to OKC. We know what happened with the Saints. What was it like for you? You were playing everywhere but New Orleans pretty much.
Yeah, you know, obviously, just like everybody's story, displaced there for a couple of weeks trying to figure out the madness if we were going to have a team, if we were going to have a school left. Coach Jones and Rick Dixon at the time was our AD, what they did to put a plan together for us and Texas Tech to open us with open arms and also make us feel at home out there in Lubbock. Couldn't be more appreciative of that bunch of crew to make sure we had a season for 2006.
All right, I got to ask you this real quick. Your heroes growing up. Mine, I had Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Pistol Pete Maravich, Archie Manning. But your baseball heroes, I mean, you played at a high level. You had to have a few.
Yeah, you know, you look at guys like Darren Erstad and Jim Edmonds, Tony
Gamers.
Gwynn.
Is that your kind of thing?
No doubt. I mean, I was never the most talented guy. I was always a guy who went off of hard work and just being the grittiest guy on the field, being the dirtiest guy on the field. I prided myself on that part of it. It's kind of the mentality we make up there at Southeastern with our players. I want them to portray the same thing that I was as a player, that mental toughness and just that hard-nosed grit, grind, and get after you.
Those three guys you named play the game the right way and respect the game, and that's what I can tell that's what your players. Speaking of your players, now we're getting to the Lions.
Yes.
And I know the phrase "line up" has become big. You guys have a program. I mean, the accolades keep flying in with player after player, but I got to talk real quick about the one you just lost. I mean, perhaps one of the greatest players to come out of Louisiana, period. His name is Jamison Fisher. He led the college baseball, NCAA, all the teams with a .424 batting average. And how about this? A .558 on-base percentage. A, what was it like to coach this young man who's now with the White Sox organization? And B, how do you fill that hole?
You know, especially young man, as good of a ball player he was, he's even a better person. And we talk about it all the time in our recruiting process. If they leave our program a better player, fine. If they leave our program a better person, fantastic. That's the most important part. And people see the exceptional baseball player, but he's even more exceptional young man. He deserves every bit of success he gets. He's earned it from that standpoint. He had a rough road, had an injury his junior year, was supposed to be his big draft year, had to redshirt, and then comes back and has a year like he does for us last year. You don't replace a guy like that. You don't go recruit and sign a guy, another guy's going to hit .424 and have a 500-something on-base percentage.
.558. He's on base 3 out of every 5 times.
Insane,
that's
man.
unheard of.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's like Little League numbers.
It is. It's Nintendo numbers. But, you know, you just hope that the veterans we got coming back take a step forward to help fill that void. When you got that many guys coming back in this, then hopefully we can do a good job of filling that void.
Speaking of coming back, he was the Southland Player of the Year last year, but when he was hurt that particular year, you had another guy that was Southland Player of the Year, and he's still around. His name's Jacob Seward. Talk about him and the story about his number, which I think is fabulous. He switched numbers to, well, you tell the story.
Yeah, you know, such a special young man. He's the epitome of what we are from a baseball standpoint, the way we play. Probably the best defensive center fielder in the country. I mean, he can go get it with the best of them defensively. Actually got a chance to start his freshman year because of his defense. We weren't really worried about the offense, and obviously do what he did his sophomore year there to continue on the defense part of it. He added the offense there, top table setter at the top of the lineup, and plays with a special place in his heart for his dad. Dad passed away his senior year. Where's number 3? Where's number 3 in honor of him? And they were real close.
What's the 3? Is Dad for that number?
Dad wore number 3. Right. Yeah. So you'll see it on there. He'll have it on his hat, written on there. There's a special bond between those two. And the last decision I think they made as a family before he passed away was actually to commit to Southeastern and sign with us.
All right, I got to talk about a few of these players. You got 2 all-conference players coming back. Second baseman Carson Kreitz. And also my favorite name in baseball, Webb Bobo. Talk real quick about those guys, as well as, how about this, the freshman of the year last year, Brendan Breaux.
Yeah, you know, again, we're talking about to replace Jamison Fisher. These 3 guys have got to step up for us. They had great years last year. Webb Bobo, second-team all-conference. Carson Kreitz, first-team all-conference. Brendan Breaux, the freshman All-American and freshman conference player of the year from that standpoint. Those guys are a year better, are a year seasoned. That we need to really take another step. You know, Brendan Breaux is going to set the table there at the top of the lineup with Seward and the 1-2. And then you got Carson Kreitz and Webb Bobo, who looks like Ivan Drago from Rocky.
That's right.
Right there in the middle of the order. Have a chance.
He will die.
Yes, I will break you.
I will break you.
Those 2 have a chance to be a real physical presence there in the middle of the order for us.
Hey, I got to talk about this. You have the conference preseason pitcher of the year, Max Sorolla, and number 2 guy was the relief pitcher in the Southland Conference of the year last year. And his name is Kay Grenier. Talk about these guys in the 1-2 in the pitching staff.
Yeah, very fortunate to get Mac back. He was drafted there late last year in the draft. He was a draft-eligible sophomore. Turned it down to come back, and thank God he did, because he'll be our Friday night guy. He'll be the horse. He's the preseason conference pitcher of the year, and actually Ben McDonald's nephew.
Big
Ben. Pedigree. That's it, baby.
One of the greatest players to ever come out of college, period.
Yep.
That's great lineage there. Hey, I have a tradition to sign the ball. While you do, you have another relief pitcher that's everybody thinks it might be Grenier, but it's another guy you have coming in, Josh.
Yeah, Josh Green.
Right.
Josh Green out of Parkview Baptist really kind of set the tone there at the end of the year, coming in out of ball games where we could move Cade to the starting role. So he'll be at the back of that bullpen to finish games off like he did last year in the regional.
Well, there is a tournament. If you're near Hammond, get over there. They play, how about this? UL Lafayette, first game. UL Raging Cajuns, Tony Robichaux's teams are always fantastic. They play 2 other teams over the weekend. When you bring your wife to New Orleans, take her to this gift certificate. It's a beautiful wine bistro right there uptown. Awesome. And also, I'm not going to make you sign LSU ball. I know you put Go Wave or line up on it, and you're taking that with you. So Give me a section of Saints. You like the Saints. You're picking you, kid.
I'm a huge Who Dat fan.
There you go.
I cried when they won the Super Bowl. So, and then you had one of my favorites there with Morten Anderson on. So I can't help but sign that ball right there for you.
Yep, there you go. Morton's coming up in about 3 more segments. Matt Reiser, this guy is a rising superstar in the coaching business. I mean, 120 wins in your first 3 years, and you're not even 32 yet. Forget about it. He's 32 now. Hey, we got to go. We're coming back. We have a huge show. Stay tuned for Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back, Crescent City. For our second guest, well, if you're a New Orleans music fan, you absolutely know he is. He's following in the footsteps of some of the great pianists from this region, Dr. John Allen Toussaint. His name is John Papa Gros. You know him probably from Papa Gros Funk. They play at the Maple Leaf every Monday for 13 years. He has 6 critically acclaimed albums with that band. Now he's on his own. He just cut a new album. And by the way, do they still say album? I don't even know. But he just cut some more music, and they just made a video. And he's here to join us right now on Primetime Sports. Welcome, my friend.
Where you at?
Where you at, darling? Baton Rouge native, but he's a New Orleans through and through.
I got to correct you on that.
Not native.
Born in New Orleans, raised in Baton Rouge.
Born in New Orleans, raised in
Mercy
Baton Rouge.
Hospital, baby.
My research was a little faulty, but I know you went to Catholic High.
Yeah, I did.
And you came down to Loyola.
Yep.
And you stayed.
Yeah, all my family's here.
Right.
My dad got his master's at LSU, and that's how we got up to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
So New Orleans growing up was always a second home. Both my grandparents, all my cousins, aunts and uncles, they were all here. So we were always here in town.
I know Loyola is a phenomenal music school. My son's been a guitar player for 10 years, and he was one of the schools he considered. He visited, and I didn't realize how great it was, but you are a graduate of that
I did. I graduated school with a French horn degree.
French horns?
I did.
French horns.
And but I was very lucky to be at school with a lot of New Orleans greats. Mark Mullins was there. Matt Limler was there. Jeff Albert, Brian Blade. Stanton Moore came a couple years after us. Yeah, it was great times when we were there.
Well, listen, we're going to get into some stuff you're doing coming up, but I have to talk about your influences. I mean, I think that's the first thing people want to hear about. Obviously, I mentioned 2 guys in the beginning, and I just thought that because you're New Orleans, you're soulful, you're about everything that's New Orleans, and Dr. John Allen Toussaint just come to my mind when I think of keyboardist, organist. Am I right in that thinking that they were influences in your life?
Oh, hugely. You know, it was a big part of it. But you can also, before then was probably Fats Domino. My dad played piano, so he still plays. So growing up, he always played, Fats around the house. So that was my first, introduction to it all. And then, when you just going to the parades, you're hanging out at parties with the family. It's like the music is just
you
on.
around it. I mean, you grew up with this.
So when I got out of college and I started working and trying to do gigs, people would call me not because I was a great jazz player, but because I knew the New Orleans stuff.
Right.
And it came easier to me to put it together. And just the Art Neville, Dr. John Allen Toussaint, Fats Domino, that's my backbone right
there. Well,
the
combination of New Orleans, blues, funk, jazz, rock. I mean, you've got the whole package. And I've told people this that don't know, because I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, he's every Monday night at the Maple Leaf. I'm like, this is a treasure and a treat for people. But the fact is that's your background, that's your roots. But how do you combine them all? And tell me when that came about.
You know, I had a good conversation with Alan about that years ago. And, you know, you imitate, you mimic. And that was something that I learned from Alice Marcellus when I was at Loyola. And then eventually you find your own style, your own take on it, and it becomes you.
We have a lot of crossover, man. I went to school with Winton and Brantford.
That's right.
They were a little bit older, and their brother went to Franklin, Delphio, and he was on the streetcar with me every day. But as far as your influences, I keep telling people, listen, there's only one Dr. John. There's only one Alan Toussaint, and there'll always be. But as a performer, you are just so much fun to watch, man. You really are. I mean, I put you up with anybody in town. You get your money's worth at a John Gros show.
I just love what I do.
Right.
I really do. And all the times that I spent working with George Porter, you can just see it on him when he's playing. And I just like, why hide it? There's no point in hiding it. If you love what you do,
if you love what you do, it shows. It's that light shines. Well, you talked about George Porter. That was also another early influence, although he's a great bass player. You play with him at a fairly early age, correct?
Yeah, when I was, 97 when I started playing with George. 96, I'm sorry. But I got my bachelor's degree at Loyola, and I got my master's at George Porter Jr. University.
There it is, baby. There it is. Hey, by the way, I have to talk about this. Your manager is a good friend of mine. He managed Stephen Klein. He manages several. We had Big Sam from Big Sam's Funky Nation on recently. Fred LeBlanc, who I know is a dear friend of yours. You guys play some. You are the soul of New Orleans right now. All you guys and a few others. But I need to talk about a couple big events coming up because Mardi Gras is here. It's around the corner. If you're watching the replay on Thursday, you're right there. You're playing at the Civic on Thursday, but you have a big deal. Your second annual Carnival kickoff at Tipitina's this Friday night.
Last year was so good, we decided to do it again. And the Friday of I call it the first weekend of Mardi Gras, which is the weekend before Mardi Gras weekend starts. It's when all the parades start rolling. I decided we just need to do a kickoff.
So tell people, you got Ivan Neville.
Yeah,
tell people at the show. I want people to go to this show. I know it's going to be sold out at some point, but let people know who's there with you.
Yeah, so we're at Tipitina's Friday night,
right.
And my guests are Ivan Neville, Tank, and Jelly from Tank and the Bangers, two incredible singers. Chris Royal, amazing young saxophonist. And formerly from Trombone Shorty's band, and now he's got his own band. And he's going to be opening. James Martin's going to start the show off.
Well, James Martin was part of our house band. I know James well. He sat in this chair where you are. He's got a great new album out himself. Do they even call them albums anymore?
I call them records.
Records,
because it's a recording of a moment.
Right, okay.
Vinyl I still call albums.
I want to hear more about what you're doing around town as well, because, I mean, you have regular gigs coming up, and let people know if they can't make this Carnival kickoff or they can't get to the Civic and watch you and Better Than Ezra on Thursday, what other times can they go? Is there a regular show that you did like you did the Maple Leaf?
No, I no longer have a regular show, but in March I'll be starting up at Chicky-Wawa's on Thursdays.
On Canal?
On Canal, yes.
Right near Broad, I believe, or is it right in that area?
You're right in that area, and
right
in Center City there. And we'll be starting up on Thursdays. I want to say it starts March 16th. And we'll be rolling Thursdays pretty much as long as...
So in March we can see you on Thursdays over there?
That would be a good thing.
Oh, hey, by the way, you said you were born here. You went to Baton Rouge for... What year did you go? Was it middle school, grade school?
I was 5 years old when we moved.
So you were 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you spent all the way till 18. So talk about growing up there, being a sports fan, because I have to incorporate sports here.
You got to.
You said you love the Saints. Who are your loves in sports?
Well, as a young kid, of course, you always got to pick a winner.
All right. So you didn't pick the Saints.
So growing up, I love the Saints, but I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan as a kid.
I can still name you the starting 22 from their Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I think I could
Steel Curtains. That was a fun team to root for sure.
And later on in life, I got get Jack Ham's autograph. So that was a big deal for me.
Jack Ham, baby. Number 58, was he him or? I know it was Lambert, Ham.
59.
59 was Ham. That's right.
Jack Lambert was 58.
34. Andy Russell was the
Yes.
other linebacker.
Yes.
That was a great squad. And then, of course, the Steel Kirk.
And then in high school, those were the years of LSU really taking on the national stage with basketball. So we had Rudy Macklin, Howard Carter, Ethan Allen.
How great was that team?
Leonard Mitchell.
The 81 team that went, Mitchell came a couple years later. That 81 team went to the Final Four, lost.
Yep.
Obviously, they were number one in the country for a bit. I love that you know your sports, man. Dude, this is truly an honor for me. I'm going to say this. It's a sports and entertainment show. We're 80 to 85% sports, but I've had at least 10 musicians, local guys. I call them legends, and maybe they're building their legend, but guys I really love, and I know the city of New Orleans. We love you, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. I love New Orleans music, and that's what I do.
And we've already heard one bumper from my man coming back from break. We're going to hear another one later on, and we're going to keep playing. He's going to give us a few of them. But I got to tell you, this has been a treat for me. But this show's not over. We've got Morten Anderson coming up a little bit later. He's live from Atlanta. And also, we're going to have John Brady. We're going to break down the top freshmen in the country and all these SEC teams that have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament. It's been a great show so far, and we're not through. We'll be back right here on Primetime Sports. I got to tell you, I loved hearing from John Papa Gros just now. That was awesome. And check him out this Friday at Tipitina's. He's also playing at the Civic Thursday with Better Than Ezra. That's going to be a great show. So make sure you get both of those. Hey, by the way, also want to thank Matt Reiser, but don't forget, coming up right after this, it's going to be Morten Anderson. But my next guest, once again, needs no introduction. He is my weekly basketball analyst. His name is John Brady, the former LSU Final Four coach. He coached for several decades and for several different teams, but obviously we know him down here at the Bayou at LSU. Welcome back to the show, Coach.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate
All right, we got to get right into it because something about Monday nights. Last night, let me just say this right off the bat. I'll throw this out. Syracuse, who started very slow, almost had their third straight victory over a top 10 opponent. They fell in overtime at home to Louisville, who came back on the road and got a nice win at the Carrier Dome. But then the game of the night, without question, Kansas. I'm sitting there watching the Pelicans on one TV, flipping over to this game because I thought it was over. 2:45 left. Kansas is down 14 to West Virginia. It was going to be the first time in Bill Self's career that they had two straight home losses, which is unheard of because they just won 55 in a row and they lost Iowa State. But they came back and won this game. They tied up, put in overtime. Coach, I know you were watching.
Well, what surprised me about it is a team like West Virginia that is used to pressing. That's what they do. They didn't handle the press very well, and I would assume that in practice they work against it, they'd be able to beat it. But sometimes in those type of games, particularly when you're at home and you're down as they were, when Kansas decided to press, they did it at the right time. They made them turn it over 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden it looked like West Virginia lost their poise. And here comes Kansas. Kansas hadn't made a three-pointer in the second half. Then all of a sudden, when they needed to,
it was a freight train, man.
Made three.
And that Rock Chalk Jayhawk crowd is as good as it gets. We talk about Cameron. We talk about the Dean Dome. But Kansas, Fog Allen Fieldhouse is as good as it gets.
Well, I have never been there, never played there as a coach in the 40 years that I did it. But certainly, the way it seemed, the way it sounded, the home crowd does make a difference. And particularly in that environment, it was unbelievable. And I was shocked at, really I was surprised that a Bob Huggins team lost its poise as it did, but you can understand it being in that environment. And
Huggins lost his $25,000 bonus for beating Kansas every time, but he did get it earlier in the year because they blew out Kansas in West Virginia.
I wish I'd have had his agent. That's a nice gig.
Maybe when you get back in, you can have a good agent right here. Right. Hey, by the way, last week, and the week before, we were talking about some of these talented freshmen. Malik Monk, we've gone on and on about him. You know you love him. He's your number 3 freshman. But there's a guy I talked about last week. I told you my 2 favorite players in college were senior, obviously, Frank Mason from Kansas and the freshman Lonzo Ball. Now, I'm watching the Oregon game. Oregon's 5th in the country, and they had beaten UCLA in a crazy victory. They came way back and beat them earlier in the season. UCLA's down 19. Lonzo Ball is doing nothing in this game, and all of a sudden he turns it on, Coach, and they win this game against an Oregon team they really need to get victory at Pauley Pavilion.
Well, you were right about him. 6'6", very versatile player. And the thing about him is he didn't he wasn't playing well early, but he didn't let it bother him or upset him. He stayed with it. The game came to him. He made some big plays, and that one shot that he made to really seal the game for UCLA,
like 40 feet,
was unbelievable.
It was unreal.
And as we discussed, he doesn't have a fluid jump shot, but it comes off his hand right, and the rotation is right, much like your jump shot when you play.
Yeah, just like it, right? Except my form was a little better. I don't know what this thing. No, this guy's going to be a top 2 pick probably in the NBA draft. 6'6", 190, averages 16 points, 8 assists. I mean, he's a point guard, but he's really kind of a point forward because he's all over the place. And 6 rebounds. He's the real deal, I think, for the NBA.
Well, here's the thing about him, too. As a freshman, he's shooting over 60% from the floor. I mean,
crazy.
For a freshman to come in and do that against the competition that he plays and in the environment he plays in, it's unbelievable a shooting percentage that high.
Coach, there's some great freshmen, and every year there is, but these seem to be sticking out because that very same night, a guy named Jason Tatum on Thursday night, well, that was the game of the night before UCLA played Oregon. It was obviously Duke, Carolina. Jason Tatum got shut out in the first half. Shut out. This was the big freshman, 6'8", 205, as you see. But my goodness, 19 points in the second half, and he had an emphatic dunk that sealed the victory.
Well, I really like him too. And here's another thing about him, as with most of these freshmen we're talking about, is the poise they have as a young player. You know, you go through the first half and you don't score a basket. Some guys get frustrated. Some guys try to press the issue. But he seemed to let the game come to him, and when he had the opportunity to score it, he did. Therefore, he wound up getting 19 points by not getting frustrated with how the first half had gone for him. So for him to keep his poise, stay under control, score 19 the second half, make the dunk to really seal the game, just speaks of what kind of player he is and what kind of special pro he may be.
Well, you see a celebration shot by him, too. The celebration was after he hit the 3 right there. That was just as big or bigger, and he's a big-time player. But, Coach, you've told me Jason Tatum's your 4th best freshman. Right. Malik Monk is your 3rd best freshman. Right. Lonzo Ball is your 2nd best freshman. We're running out of freshmen. Who could be?
We're really not, but
who could be number 1?
Well, I like that guy from Kansas last night that we saw, Josh Jackson.
Josh Jackson.
I like him. He's got a lot. I like his presence. I like his look. He looks older than he is. He's got a presence about him. He's got a competitiveness about him. He's got a toughness. Plus, he's got the game to go with it. You know, if he wasn't on the team that has 2 other really good perimeter players around him, his numbers would probably be higher because he would get more shots. But he's still a tremendously talented freshman on a team that wins, and I really like what he is, what he's going to be about, and the kind of pro he's going to be.
By the way, 17 points on a team that already has a 22-point score in Frank Mason, 7 rebounds a game, 3 blocks, 2 steals. What's not to like there? I like Kansas going forward. There's so many teams that could win this whole thing. Those are your top 4, right?
Right.
But
right now,
I'm going to give you a guy that I think could be number 1. And I'm going to give you your opinion. He went to DeMatha High School, played with Morgan Wooten and the legendary coach. And then he went all the way across to the other Washington, to go play for the Huskies. His name is Markelle Fultz. He's a 6'4" point guard. He got hurt a couple games ago, but my goodness, the guy's averaging 23-plus points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. He's the real deal.
Well, in terms of all the freshmen in the country, he is putting up the biggest numbers, no question about it. The difference in some of these other freshmen that we've talked about is his team's not winning as much as they are, so he doesn't get the attention, he doesn't get the TV coverage as some of these other guys have been able to do. So he is a talented freshman, his numbers are big, and I'm sure he's another first-round draft pick, top 15 pick if he chooses to come out.
I'd say top 5 maybe, top 10 at worst, but you know what? He's hurt right now, so that might play a factor. We'll see if he can come back. Yeah. A couple of these schools are blessed to have a couple of guys, and it seems like they always do, but one of them is UCLA. We all talk about Lonzo Ball, but the leading scorer on this team is not Ball. It's a guy named TJ Leaf. He's 6'10", great shot blocker, good rebound. He leads the team rebounds as well. Talk about what he brings to this Bruin team that's playing so well at the moment.
Well, here's another thing. UCLA has got to be well coached. Steve Alford's doing a great job because if you get talented players like they have now, 2 of the best freshmen in the country.
And his son, Bryce. That's
Bryce
a good combination.
Is a great player, too.
Yeah.
So he's getting them to play together. They share the ball. Freshmen coming in, being able to play within a team concept. He's really done a nice job of coaching that team. It's really tremendously talented. And I like their team. You know, what I have seen as opposed to the SEC and some of these other teams nationally is the ability of these other teams to really score the ball more easily than teams in the SEC seem to score it.
All right, I got to say this. Kentucky, they always seem to have a bunch of players, and believe it or not, Malik Monk is scoring more than any player at Kentucky in the John Calipari. But we've talked about him. Right. I want to talk about the other guy who's one of your honorable mentions, DeAndre Fox. This guy is a baller himself. Talk about what he provides for the Kentucky Wildcats and their potential run for another national championship.
Well, he is a perfect jockey riding some powerful horses there in Kentucky. I think he has a great presence of a freshman point guard. He can score it when he needs to. He drives it to the rim and gets fouled. His jump shot is probably not as good as some others from the three-point line, but he's certainly a great setup guy for some great players around him.
A couple guys in the ACC I have to bring up real quick because I want to get to some other stuff. Real quick, I love this kid, Dennis Smith Jr. From NC State. They're not having the greatest season, but his numbers are spectacular. 19 points a game, and he does everything well. 7 assists as well, 4.5 rebounds, and he shoots threes too. Him and then Jonathan Isaac from Florida State. Kind of just talk about what they provide for their squads.
Well, Isaac's a great player. Florida State's really been highly ranked. He's a big reason why they're doing what they're doing. NC State, I talked to Butch Pierre about this young man today, matter of fact.
Your former assistant.
My former assistant at LSU. And Butch said there's no question that he's a top 10 draft pick and he can come out and be top 5 maybe, but certainly top 10.
Got to get into this real quick. We know Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida are all in the tournament, 20-5, 10-2 in conference. They're in. Is there a fourth team? And who might it be between maybe Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Tennessee? They're the ones that are close.
Well, they all have opportunities. They all have 6 games to go. I think Alabama of the 3 is the less likely to do it. But they have some other opportunities. I think Tennessee's got an opportunity to do it. Even though they're 13-11, they've got 2 games on the road at Kentucky and at South Carolina they've got to do well in. Arkansas has got South Carolina on the road, and I don't know if it's South Carolina, but they've got 2 on the road they've got to win. And Ole Miss has South Carolina their last game of the year. And if Ole Miss can string together 4 or 5 more wins, that game with South Carolina, the last SEC regular season game for them in Oxford, may be the clincher for them to get in or out.
And I know we're both Andy Kennedy fans as well.
I love Andy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Was Huggins for years, and he's done some great things at Ole Miss. I have to bring this up. Gino Auriemma, 100 games in a row, Coach? Are you kidding me? They win by an average of 40, and they've only had 2 of those 100 wins that are even single digits.
Well, he does a great job coaching, great job of managing players, but he does get the best girls in the country to come there. And you can't do it without great players. You can't do it without great coaching. And they have them both at Connecticut, and the program he's built there has really been unmatched, except maybe for the UCLA men's program back in the 60s and 70s.
It's kind of like John Brady. He gets the best girls to come as well. John, this is a weekly thing. I love it. I can't wait. We're getting into our stride right now. March is right around the corner, so we're going to have fun for the next 8 weeks.
It's going to be a wide-open, exciting NCAA tournament.
Just like this show's been today. I'm losing my breath. Coach, you're the best. Love you so much. Appreciate everything you do. John Brady right here each and every week, right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, don't forget, coming up next, the Great Dane, the greatest kicker in NFL history, the all-time leading scorer of any player in NFL history. You can't write history without putting that guy into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which he just got elected into. He's coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports. Welcome back, New Orleans and South Louisiana and the Gulf Coast as well. My next guest, well, he needs no introduction down here in the Big Easy. Well, his name's Morten Anderson. They call him the Great Dane. That's right. He was a 4th-round pick with the New Orleans Saints in 1982. He played 25 years in the NFL, more than half of those with our beloved New Orleans Saints. He even played over there in Atlanta for a while with a couple of the teams, Minnesota, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the New York Giants. But we'll always remember him as the greatest kicker, not only in New Orleans history, but in NFL history. He is the NFL's all-time leading scorer, one of the great guys there has. He's been on the all-decade team for 2 different decades. That is hard to do. Remember, I had Willie Rofe on. He did the 90s and 2000s. Well, Morten was the 80s and 90s, part of 4 playoff teams in New Orleans, went to the Super Bowl with the Falcons in the after the 98 season. And here he is right here, just a week after being elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Morten Andersen, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Still kind of floating around in the air. It's been cool.
Well, I know you're live from Atlanta now, but I saw you at the Super Bowl festivities. You were glowing on the field. Listen, I've been one of your biggest supporters. I've been on Facebook hammering, get Morten Andersen into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and this year you got it. I got to ask you the obvious question. What was that moment like when you heard and you got the call that you were indeed elected?
Almost, shock and awe, just that disbelief of, wow, it's really the knock on the door, and it's for me, and it's not a mistake, and it was an incredible feeling, overwhelming, very emotional, and I had a good cry on Dave Baker's shoulders. Dave's the president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and so just wonderful to share with all my family and friends, and just a great conclusion to a long career, obviously.
Morten, I don't know if you even realize this, because I'm sure you're in many other Hall of Fames besides the ones here in Louisiana, like Michigan State, probably in Atlanta, but I'm just saying this. For Louisiana Hall of Fames, 2009, you were inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame. 2011, it was the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. 2013, it was the Greater New Orleans Hall of Fame. 2015, the Ring of Honor. And 2017, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What is it about you in these odd number years?
No idea. I'll take them in any year, obviously, but 17 is a good year. I started out unbelievably. My Pro Football Hall of Fame number in Canton is going to be 304. We add those 2 numbers together. Now that we're talking numbers,
7.
7.
Yeah, you're right.
7 was my jersey number with the Saints. So there you go.
Well, I don't know how they do it in baseball. You go in with a team. In football, do you have to pick a team to go in with, or are you just part of your entire career? Because I know you played with 4 other teams besides here in New Orleans.
Yeah, they don't do it like baseball. You basically go in, you get a gold jacket, obviously, and then you get a bronze bust that's going to last, they say, 40,000 years up in Canton, Ohio. So I think we're safe there as far as we're not going to outlive the bust. And so you don't go in you go based on your body of work, which obviously for 25 years for me was 5 different teams. But the majority of the time spent was done in New Orleans, and that's where it all started, and that's probably where I've had the most support from the team, from the ownership, and from the fan base. So that's certainly where I'm leaning towards.
Morten, it's mind-boggling when you think of 50 years of Saints football. And it was just 7 years ago they got their first one. That was Ricky Jackson. Willie Rofe followed him up. But you're just the 3rd Hall of Famer for this franchise. Can you tell us what that feels like? Because there's been so many players come through the doors, first on David Drive, now on Airline Drive, and you're just the 3rd one to make it to the biggest Hall of Fame there is.
Yeah, it's humbling. And it's, I'm mindful just of how many great players there are, not only for the Saints, but in the league and in the history of the league. They did a comparison. They said about 27,000 people that played pro football or coached it or managed it in some way. And out of those 27,000, now you got 310 in the hall. 170 plus are still living and walking around this earth with gold jackets. So to be the 3rd guy for the Saints is a huge honor for me. And I certainly want to share it with not only the organization, but the city of New Orleans and its fans, and all my teammates that I played with and coaches that helped me along the way.
Hey, listen, your numbers speak for themselves. Besides being the NFL's all-time leading scorer, besides having the most field goals in NFL history. Oh, by the way, you were a 60-yard field goal for a long time, was the 2nd longest in NFL history behind Tom Dempsey. But the other things, 7 Pro Bowls, 6 times first-team All-Pro. That's hard to do. There's only 1 kicker per year that they give that to. But I have to bring this up because I forgot it myself. Your very first kickoff in 1982, is it true that you got hurt and you had to miss 8 games because of a twisted ankle?
Yeah, I got crushed by by the turf monster. You asked for turf right there in the Superdome. I was running away from Randy Love. He was the player number 40 for the St. Louis Cardinals. I kicked the ball in the end zone. It was the opening kickoff of my very first regular season game in my career. And, I snapped my ankle, tore my ligaments, and I was out for 8 weeks.
Hey, I had the Cajun Cannon on here just a couple weeks ago. He's always a trip. I have to ask you, you two were born on the very same day back in, well, I shouldn't even tell you the date. Let's just say the birthday, I believe, is January 19th. Is that correct?
August
19th. That's right. I'm August 11th. What am I saying? August 19th of the same year. And you obviously played not just in New Orleans with him, but a little bit of time in Atlanta. What's y'all's relationship?
Oh, I have a great. I think I have. You'd have to ask Bobby how he feels about it, but I feel great about it. We're very similar in many ways, and being born in the same month. We're both Leos, so we're both kind of dominant and ambitious, and we like to talk. And him more than me probably, but he's a great man, and he really enjoyed his friendship. He's been one of my staunchest supporters throughout this whole process, and just a great guy, very humble, and he works hard at it. He does great in radio. Really enjoy listening to him, and just a great human being.
Well, he adores you. By the way, I have to bring this up because it was a sad day back in 1994 when you left the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, there was some issues with management. You know, they're trying to squeeze some dollars. But Jim Moore and you have been very close over the years. What's your relationship with Jim today?
Well, we're friendly. I don't know if we're close, but we're certainly it's cordial, and we buried the hatchet a long time ago. There's really no need for negative energy moving forward, and so that's water under the bridge. What happened in '94, it is what it is. Everybody knows about it, so I don't feel like even talking about that anymore. But he's a great coach. He's done well over the years, and I think he's enjoying his retirement now, or semi-retirement. He does a little television, I believe, but it's good to see him when I can.
By the way, you were 47 years old. You had your most accurate year kicking, which is unbelievable. 25 out of 28 field goals, 89%. Is there a memory that strikes you first when you think of your NFL football career?
Well, I would say New Year's Eve in New Orleans when we made the playoffs for the very first time in 1987. That was big when I had a field goal that I had to kick twice to get us into the playoffs. And, of course, the Super Bowl kick, the NFC Championship kick with Atlanta was big to put us in the Super Bowl. And there have been others, one with the New York Giants during 9/11 that year up there against the Dallas Cowboys was pretty special in 2001. So there's been a lot of Kansas City Chiefs, my first game with them, I made a game winner against Cleveland with no time left on the clock.
Yep. I remember. I actually have the picture of you.
Bizarre game.
I have the picture of you right here celebrating that, being held up by your teammates in Kansas City. Hey, by the way, Morten, I have to thank you so much for taking the time. Listen, Archie Manning, Drew Brees, I'm going to throw Deuce McAllister as beloved people, but Morten Andersen is right there at the top of the list. So once again, Morten, we love you down here in the Crescent City, and we're so proud of you and happy for you. So thank you so much for coming on Primetime Sports.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Absolutely. Morten Andersen. He is one of my all-time favorite athletes and people. I used to bartend, and he used to come over to Hawkbrow occasionally and have a drink or two. Hey, we're coming back. We're going to wrap this up. I've got a good friend coming up next. Going to tell you about a big NBA All-Star event coming up this weekend right here on Primetime Sports. Last but not least, it's a guy I've known for many, many years. We played a lot of sports over the years, particularly, when baseball wrapped up. We played some softball in Atlanta on some killer teams. His name is Gerald Williams. He is a fixture here in the city of New Orleans. By the way, he was an all-state basketball, baseball, track player at Newman High School back in the day. He started as a freshman on the 78 state champions with a guy named Sean Toohey, who was a pretty good ball player, still the assist leader at Ole Miss. And not just that, he's an overall great guy. He's a pastor. He is an educator, and he is enriching the lives of kids in our city, which is so important to me, and I know most of you as well. And he has a group called the Excite All-Stars, and they have a big event this week, and I can't wait. That's why he's on this show. All those accolades are great, and he is still at his alma mater right now as an assistant with Jim Tillett at Newman. But we're here at All-Star Weekend, and you've got something big going on, my friend. Gerald Williams, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Scotty. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I mean, first of all, I got to show the picture of you at Newman because this is classic. I was a couple years behind you, but I remember this team. I looked up to Sean Toohey almost as much as Pistol Pete Maravich. Not quite, but Sean Toohey was a great player, and you started on this team. Talk about that, winning a title as a freshman.
Absolutely. It was an incredible experience. Sean Toohey made everybody's job a lot easier. All I had to do was get the ball to Sean, and I looked pretty good. So.
Yeah, know your role, especially as a freshman. Sean,
absolutely.
And also, by the way, he played baseball at Vanderbilt, and then he transferred to Tulane, and he played there for 3 years as well. But, Gerald, I got to talk about what's going on with you right now with this event. I have spoken. You run the camps all summer. You when I say enrich the lives of these young men and kids and boys and girls, you truly do. And it's an honor for me to come speak when I do. And this weekend, you're having a big event in conjunction with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Kind of let people know what it's all about.
Sure. We are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year with Excite All-Stars, and one of the things that we wanted to do was to do an impactful event to enrich the lives of kids. And so we reached out to one of our sponsors, Nike, and pitched them the idea of doing a big Kids Day event on All-Star Weekend. They liked the concept, said that they would come on board. And so we then reached out to some of our program partners. We have some great program partners like Up to Us Sports, Laureus Sports Foundation, Elevate Next, First Tee of Greater New Orleans, and Body by Carol, a great bodybuilder and fitness trainer in New Orleans. And so we brought these partners together to put this event together for kids, and they're going to have a day of sports at Joe W. Brown Park on Saturday, February 18th, where they'll be doing a variety of sports sampling and also get education and get educational programming as well.
Well, and this is, I want people to know what you do as well besides this weekend, because throughout the year, I've gotten to know some of the kids. Heck, your sons were involved early on when I used to speak 5 years ago. But talk about what you do year-round, particularly in the summer with these camps.
Sure. Well, we originally, after Hurricane Katrina, we wanted to provide a safe place for kids to be able to go and have a good time and be a refuge for kids. And it evolved into where we wanted to provide academic enrichment as well as sports-based programming. And we realized that if we give these kids this opportunity to shine and expose them to opportunities, that these kids would thrive in that environment. And we've seen our program grow from 20 kids to over 250 kids during the summer, and over 150 kids we serve during after-school programming during the school year.
Well, I have to say this because I have to bring it up. I mean, Penny is your co-partner. She's your wife. She's an amazing woman. I got to know her in the early and mid-'90s in Atlanta. This is a dream you two have had together.
Yes, it is. And she is the brains behind the operation, and she runs the day-to-day operations of our organization.
That's called brownie points, by the way.
Yeah, phenomenal job. Right. She does a phenomenal job with our programming.
All right. Any other things that we need to know about this weekend? I mean, are there any slots open? I mean, can people come check it out if they want to donate, do anything to help kids? Because, listen, we're all about our future, and these kids are our future. And you're a big part of helping many of them. So what can we do for you?
Well, we have over 200 kids that are currently registered for the day. There's around 20 slots available. So people who want to register can go on our website at exciteallstars.org, and there's a link there to register for the All-Star Epic Day of Play.
Speaking of Epic, I went to see him coach with Jimmy Tillett over at Newman last week. They looked very good, beating St. Charles. Is it St. Charles Catholic, I guess? St. Charles. And Kipper Todd, I got to give him a shout out. He was on the other side. But Gerald, you're the best.
Thank
Known
you very
for
much,
years.
Scotty.
I look up to you and admire everything you do for the kids and the city of New Orleans.
Thank you very much.
There he is. Gerald Williams, this has been a fantastic show. I mean, I got to thank everybody. Listen, John Brady, our weekly guy. I mean, I am so honored to have him every single week to talk college hoops and a little bit of NBA as well. How about this? The Great Dane, Morten Anderson. He was live from Atlanta. Love me some Morten. He was on as well. And also the great young hotshot coach, Matt Riser. When I say that, this guy is a superstar rising. 120 wins in just 3 seasons. That's unheard of before you're age 32. That's crazy. And then also, of course, the rest of our guests. So we've had a great show. John Papa Gros, who we just heard, is amazing as well. So thank you for everybody. Hey, the Redhead Tsunami. But most important, Will Hill, my producer, Kenny Juno, Naila. Jace Moves on vacay right now, but we'll thank him too. And last but not least, Jim Dotson and Ron Yeager, because they get it done here at WLE. And for CST and WLE, have a great weekend. Enjoy All-Star Weekend, and come back next week for Primetime Sports.